All right. Welcome back to my channel. I am Aaliyah Brixton, and today we are here with another podcast-like video. Today, guys, we're going to be discussing the colorism versus racism issue that has been pretty prevalent in the media as of recently. It's something that's very close and dear to my heart, so I definitely do want to tap into it and talk about it. Now, to start this video off, I'm going to focus on one main talking point, which is ultimately that reverse colorism does not exist. Once again, reverse colorism does not exist. It is the equivalent of trying to say reverse racism exists. People may be prejudiced towards white people, but they're not racist towards white people because it's just, as per its definition, it's impossible. So let's take a look at the definition of what racism is and what colorism is, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. And when we look at racism, we are looking at prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is minority or marginalized. The secondary definition is the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. So what I do want to say is that when we look at the definition of racism and the definition of colorism, though both things do stem from a sort of systematic and institutionalized mindset and behavior, the key difference when we're talking about colorism versus racism is that colorism comes from within the racial group that a person is particularly a part of, whereas racism is external. It comes from outside people who are not part of that racial group, and that's the biggest thing that a lot of people fail to understand. I was recently scrolling on Facebook and I seen this guy comment on a post and was like, well, I'm darker than a white person, so if they're mean to me, then that's colorism. Babe, that's not colorism, that's racism. I'm not sure what's being taught in school anymore these days. I mean, I understand that the public system isn't the best and that a lot of stuff we do have to teach ourselves, but I really would think that it's something very simple and blatant to understand the difference between colorism versus racism. Now, the reason why this conversation to me has become somewhat of like a popular statement as of recently is due to the fact that Megan James, former Bad Girls Club, she interviewed Manello and she asked her, does she believe that reverse colorism is real? Well, my bad. So she asked her, is colorism real? Now, that entire question is just like, why would you ask me, is colorism real? The better question to ask me would be, what's my thoughts on colorism? Have I experienced colorism working in the industry that I'm a part of? That's a better question to ask. Now, Megan then turned around and kind of like combated what Manillo said by saying that she herself has experienced reversed colorism, ultimately stating that she used to get bullied by other black kids in school by them saying things like, oh, like, you're not black enough to hang out with us. And I want a lot of people to understand that bullying and colorism is two different things. A lot of people are bullied, but not a lot of people face colorism. When we're talking about colorism, I want us to look at statistics of things. I want us to look at why is it that when you do watch black films, you don't really see a lot of dark-skinned women as actresses, but you'll see a lot of ambiguous or lighter-toned women as actresses. I want us to ask ourselves, why is it that when we watch a lot of black movies, there's always this narrative of a dark-skinned man who's strong and just the embodiment of what a man should be, with a lighter toned woman or a woman that looks so racially ambiguous? Do you understand what I'm saying? Those are things where colorism comes into play. Being told that you're not black enough to hang out with black people is not colorism, it's bullying. And I really want us to pack up that narrative and that whole description. Another reason why I want to say that reverse colorism doesn't exist is a perfect example. If you guys don't watch The Real Housewives of Potomac, I will insert, a clip to show you guys, but there's a cast member on there. Her name is Wendy. Beautiful, young, amazingly talented African woman. She is of a darker skin tone. Now, There was an incident that occurred on the Real Housewives of Potomac about a season or two ago where two women, both of like the browner on the lighter side of the spectrum, got into something, and one of the women were described as aggressive, as a bully, as this, as that, and all of these things. However, now here we are in season 7 of Real Housewives of Potomac, and Wendy is experiencing this same aggression and anger, but from a black woman who looks racially ambiguous, and all of the girls, for the most part, is putting all of the blame on Wendy. They're saying that Wendy is the aggressor, that Wendy is the one that's wrong, that Wendy this, Wendy that. Everything is being faulted onto the darker skinned woman, when in this situation it's so clear as day that the aggressor and the attacker is the racially ambiguous woman. This is what people would define as colorism. Why is it that because she's of a lighter skin tone and she has this, like exotic look to her, that she gets a pass for all of these things that Monique never got a pass for? Now, for those of you who don't know, Monique is the person on the previous season that got into a physical altercation with one of the other cast members named Candace. Wendy and Mia got into a physical altercation this year on the show, but again, Mia was the aggressor. Mia hit Wendy. Mia got loud with Wendy. Mia initiated everything. But for some reason, Mia was seen as the victim in this whole situation when it came to the ladies on the show outside of Karen and Ashley and Candace. But this is just perfect examples to pretty much help people understand that, like, reverse colorism is not a thing. It will never be a thing. I want us to stop thinking that it will be a thing. I want us to stop forcing it to be a thing, because it's not a thing and it will never be a thing. And I know I said thing a lot, but that's just really me trying to get the point across to people. Colorism, once again, is internal to a specific racial group. Every racial group outside of white people experience colorism, because every racial group outside of white people are mixed. They have people that are light, they have people that are dark. You have Asia is a perfect example of that. Like, there's South Asians, East Asians, Southeast Asians, and they're all different skin tones. But within that Asian racial group, there is colorism amongst other Asian people where, I forget which group of Asians typically are darker, but that's not something that's seen as good in their community either. When you're of a darker tone, you have all of these characteristics that are thrown upon you that you didn't even have a chance to stand. And the reason why colorism, to me, and it being so hard for lighter toned people to understand, is because let's just be 100% for real right now. A lot of us, if we were alive in the 60s and the 50s when, colorism was very heavily, and people wanted to be white passing, and people wanted to, do the brown paper bag test and anything like that. You guys know that your feelings will be so hurt in this overly sensitive ass culture that you all have created. So stop trying to invalidate the fact that dark-skinned women are going through this issue, that this issue is very real. This issue is very prevalent. Stop trying to impose your issues onto other people. And that's a problem with a lot of the things that go on when we do talk about colorism and racism, is that a lot of people are kind of like in this box of like, well, I didn't see it happen, so I don't think it's real. Oh, well, that's not how it works for me, so I don't believe it. Don't invalidate other people's experiences in life because you personally did not go through it. But at the same time, don't make someone feel like the facts that they're saying is incorrect, because at the end of the day, a fact is a fact for a reason. It's proven history behind it. Like, these things are very much real. Very much real. Like, I don't want people to just think that this is not okay. Like, this goes so, like, there's so much more that can be talked about when we're talking about colorism versus racism. But really, just for the sake of this video, like, I really just wanted people to understand that reverse colorism is just not real. It's not a thing. you may have been bullied and you may have been discriminated against, but the only person that's really going to discriminate against a light-skinned black person is going to be a white person. Let's just be so for real. Like, the only form of discrimination you will face as a lighter toned black person will come from a white person or someone outside of your race. Therefore, that would make the encounter racist and not colorist. But as a lighter skinned black woman, you may get into tiffs with darker toned people, and you'll probably throw in certain jabs here and there. I don't think that those jabs should necessarily be considered a person as being a colorist. I think that when two people are arguing, they do hit below the belt and they go neck and neck for each other, so that's whatever. But when it comes to things like the brown paper bag test and different stuff like that, like, yeah, then that's definitely colorism. Like, you guys want to sit here and talk all the time, and you guys see these videos on TikTok of people saying stuff like, oh yeah, like, I was in Hollywood and Chris Brown was having a party and, like, literally all of the dark-skinned girls were not getting let into the club. Like, girl, that is colorism. Like, Chris Brown is black. He's a lighter-skinned black person, but he's black and he's discriminating against black people. He's discriminating against his own kind, i.e., that would lead to colorism. And I'm not saying Chris Brown is a colorist. I'm just saying, as per example, that would be considered a colorist thing to do. Because now you're favoring women who are lighter versus women that are darker, or just darker skinned people in general. And let's be real, colorism does not affect men the way that it affects women. 100%. Like, I think that it's actually the opposite. When we talk about colorism when it comes to men, it's kind of like this notion and idea, because being of a lighter skin tone comes with so much femininity that a lot of people view light-skinned men to be so feminine and so proper, and they're kind of like the pretty boys, and then they view darker men to be more masculine, the type of guy that they want, like, ooh, he's so strong, like, that kind of way. So that would be the only case in which someone can probably try to use the word reverse colorism, but again, that's still not a thing. It's just that colorism affects gender differently. So when we're looking at women, colorism affects a darker woman. Colorism affects darker women. It doesn't affect light-skinned women. It affects darker women. Racism affects black people as a whole. And then, like, just lack of masculinity and stuff like that affects a guy when it comes to being, whatever particular skin tone that he is. But honestly, guys, again, like I said, this is a conversation that can go on for days and days and days, but I really just wanted to touch on, like, an overview of the situation. Comment down below if you guys have ever experienced, any colorism, any racism encounters or anything like that. What did you guys do to combat it? Like, even within your own family, things like that, just comment down below, let me know, and I'm looking forward to spending the rest of the year with you guys. Also, Happy New Year 2023. We're looking at big, great things, and thank you guys so much for tuning in.